Welcome back to the Stay Introverted Podcast. I am your co-host, Jay Coleman.
And I am your other co-host, Steph Laffey.
And as always, we want to thank you for joining us on this podcasting journey that the two of us are on. It's definitely been a blast. Would you say so, Steph?
It has been life-changing, life-altering, incredible, fun. You weren't expecting that, were you, by the look of your face?
I wasn't. I mean, we started this, maybe 3-4 months ago, and we're knocking on 20 episodes dropped. More on the way. It's pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome. What did we record? Like 25, 26 at this point?
Yeah, I think we're at about 25 recorded. We're about to drop, as of this recording, episode number 20. Feeling good.
Feeling good like we should. But I guess we should stop talking about ourselves and introduce our guest who you guys just heard.
Yes,
I'm glad we're already making you laugh.
We have a very special guest today, our good friend Drew, aka His Royal Highness Sir Drewski. Welcome, sir.
I can't believe you actually did that. Thank you for having me. And it's actually incredible. 25 episodes recorded, 20 shipped. And if I remember correctly, there's a stat somewhere that says something like most podcasters never make it past the 11th episode or something like that. Wow. And so you guys are already in the 99th percentile of podcasters just by the consistency alone. And hopefully when I say guys, that's a gender neutral term. So hopefully I'm not offending anyone here. Are there any ground rules? Is profanity allowed, or do you shy away from that?
Profanity is allowed. The only thing we shy away from is capital crimes.
Capital crimes. Okay.
Misdemeanors are okay. Capital crimes is where I draw the line.
So I won't tell my Secret Service story
on
this podcast then.
But I want to know. We can.
I dropped it on Threads one time, but briefly because it got way too much attention, and it's a true story. So I didn't want that to circulate too far on the interwebs. But if you didn't see it, I'd be happy to give you the abridged version at some point tonight.
Okay, sounds good.
We're here to have a good time. Not due time, so that's all.
Is that on a t-shirt yet? Because
it will be. It will be.
We got merch already?
We're working on it.
Yeah, we are. We have a meeting about it tonight, actually.
Yeah, stay introverted, stay out of jail. That's all good. It's coming. It's coming.
It's on brand.
It's on brand.
What is the goal of the theme of the podcast? Obviously introversion, right? But who are you trying to reach? What's the message? What's the mission?
I love that question. Do you want to go or you want me to go?
Ladies first.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. So I guess the theme of it is to celebrate introversion, like the many different forms, because I think we live in a world where society likes to look at introversion as sort of a monolith and a catch-all, like this is what introversion looks like, and that's just not true. Jay and I are both introverts, and we couldn't be any more different, but yet we are both very introverted. And so we want to not only hold space for ourselves to show people what introversion can look like, but also to invite other people who are introverted or who love an introvert to come hang out with us and just talk about life according to introverts.
For sure. How long does it take you to recharge after recording one of these podcast episodes? Is that part of your introversion? Like you need time to go into hermit mode?
For me, it takes me at least a good day or two.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, just a couple of days. But I think we were talking about it on a previous episode. It's actually a good kind of drained as opposed to I guess the regular type of drain for introverts. Because Steph and I, we actually look forward to these recordings. I know I do. We have a blast, we have a great conversation, but it's still a use of a lot of energy. So for me, it always takes me a couple of days to kind of get back to where I was before.
Yeah, I mean, I have a thing for knowing that my battery is on empty and doing nothing about it and not caring. And burning out like every couple of days. So
And
you
then
would think that
what do you do when you burn out?
I just
What does
don't
that look like?
talk. I don't
Uh,
talk unless I have to.
mhm. So yeah, I live in a house. So I have two kids, married.
hmm
Both my kids are basically adults at this point. My youngest is 15; he'll be 16 in a month, and my oldest is 20. And so at any given time in this household, I'm liable to run into somebody in a common space. And during those moments when I'm feeling burnt out and, my battery is low, it's a lot of forced socialization and it drives
hmm
me crazy. There's no real point to this story other than,
Mhm.
it would be nice to be able to just not talk for a while for an
hmm
extended period of time. I think I've got enough burnout out stacked up at this point where I could probably go like on a mountaintop monastery for 6 months or so, just go hang out with the monks and do the silent retreat and not say a word for a half a year to a year and would be perfectly happy. I think I need that level of
Yeah.
recovery.
I could use that too. Although I'm not really I totally hear you when you say like you have two kids. I don't have kids yet, but I do work in an office and it's very hard to get away with not talking for
Yeah.
an extended period of time. Like just last Friday, I had 8 calls in one day and I had to talk on all of them. So
Mm.
I would love to not talk, but then I have 3 podcasts, so I'm kind of a walking contradiction.
Interesting. Bit enigmatic. Yeah, I do a lot of talking during my day job too, unfortunately.
hmm
A lot of meetings and stuff. I don't have to spend as much time in the office though, so that's nice. I work
hmm
mostly remote. I'm supposed to go in the office a couple times a week. I usually go in like a couple times a month, and I'm just waiting on somebody to say, "Wait a minute, you're not following the policy here." I just had a performance review a couple months ago, and I was expecting the hammer to drop down, and they're like, "Oh, here's a bonus. You're doing great." So just keep
Wow, there you
keep
go.
riding that wave as long as I can get away with it.
Nice.
That's so funny. That's funny that you say that because one of my really good friends is an engineer for like some tech firm and part of his job is creating this like tech solution that tracks how often employees are coming in now.
Oh boy.
But the funny part is he hasn't been in since the beginning of COVID.
I don't like your
Um,
friend already. I'm sorry.
no, he hates it. He hates it. He's like, I need to quit, but I don't know what else I was gonna do. So he just takes as long as he possibly can to roll out updates. He's like, look, I didn't choose the project. Like they put me on it and I'm just doing it and trying to not get people in trouble, but
Yeah, technology is getting rapidly dystopic by the day.
it is.
Scary. Scary.
Right. Like, why do you need to track? Like that, what a weird thing to invest money in.
Because we've got to squeeze out like every ounce of productivity, even though, people be now to be fair, I actually am more productive in the office than I am working remotely, but that
Right.
doesn't apply across the board. My ADHD gets me distracted quickly. I'll be
hmm
sitting in meetings with my camera off, day trading on my phone, flipping back and forth between the meetings, and then, got Reddit pulled up on the browser, just in
Right.
complete stimmy mode. And when I'm in the office, I can't get away with some of that stuff. Some of it
Right.
still. So, you know, a lot of people though they found, I think even studies have shown this, that the overall, like the mean level of productivity among remote workers has either been even keeled with what they were seeing in the office, or has improved over the office metrics. And so it's
hmm
interesting that there's this big push to get everybody back butts in seats, even though the data shows that it's not going to improve productivity, and if anything is going to lower morale, which is going to affect productivity. And there's this whole idea that, well, maybe it's being driven by real estate and empty offices, and how that's going to have a knock-on effect on the economy when offices have, leases get broken and these offices sit empty for quite some time. And so the revenue is not flowing in for the landlords and all of the adjacent businesses that usually enjoyed the commerce from that foot traffic, the bagel shops and the coffee shops and all that stuff. People aren't coming into the cityscapes, and so they're not visiting those businesses. And so, there's another theory that a part of the push about return to office is really about stimulating the economy, as opposed to anything dealing with productivity or work related. This whole thing about, oh, we got to build teams and all that. I don't know. I do just fine talking to my colleagues over video chat and over instant message. Going in the office once every couple of weeks seems to be the sweet spot for me and a lot of the people that I talk to, because there is some value in connecting with people face to face, having that human touch. But outside of that, it just seems like there's a big charade going on. And that may be the conspiracy theorist in me speaking. Not sure if we're ready to go down that rabbit hole yet.
We are ready, but we're born ready. Jay, I want to hear your thoughts on that, but before I share mine.
I agree with you. I think, me personally, my company is they already put out the word that, like, starting in September, they want folks to come back, to the office at least once per week. I'm fortunate enough to work primarily from home as well. I actually feel like I work better at home when it's just me. I'm not a fan of people in general. But yeah, come September, we'll be in there at least once per week. But I don't really look forward to it. I do agree there is a level of benefit as far as being able to collaborate, bounce ideas off folks. But for the most part, I just work better on my own. But it does get frustrating sometimes, because when I do have calls and I do have meetings, in my role, I actually have to lead these meetings, which means I have to talk more than I normally would, which means I get drained a whole lot faster. So, but I still would rather do that here, because at least here, once the meeting is over, I can go get something to drink, take a nap, and recharge quickly, as opposed to trying to find somewhere to hide in the office.
Yeah, because what happens when those meetings let out? Inevitably, somebody's going to try to like D you up in the hallway with one of those drive-by questions. Or, yeah, about that thing that I emailed you 5 minutes ago. Can we talk about it? You don't have to deal with that at home.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's like, no, I get that all the time. People will come over and be like, hey, did you get my Teams message and my email that I just sent? I'm like, no, I didn't actually. Like, it's like, why'd you send the email if you were just gonna walk over and talk to me? Like, just pick one.
Exactly.
I hate that. I cannot stand that. Don't Teams me or send me an email and then come up to me, or call me. Like, pick a lane, homie. It pisses me off.
Pick one lane, not all three.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Just swerving across all 3 lanes of the highway.
Exactly.
I actually always instruct people, if you actually want my attention, send me a Teams message, because like I'm really bad at checking Outlook. Like, it is, there's something about checking my emails that gives me so much anxiety. I don't know what it is. Send me a message on Teams. Do not call me without a warning, because that is the fastest way to like get ignored.
Yeah, I don't answer phone calls. Just period.
Well, I have unrecognized numbers. I send them straight to voicemail. And then I keep my voicemail box full.
Yep. Exactly.
So, like, if you try to call me and I don't know your number, it's not gonna happen.
You're just going into the black hole. Yeah, you better know the text, because that's the only way you're gonna get me. My voicemail used to say that too. It used to say, "Hey, feel free to leave a message. But if you actually want a response, text me.
Mm-hmm.
But now it doesn't even say that. All it says is just voicemail is full.
Yeah, I hear you. Like, I mean, I have so many. It's not my fault, but all the robocallers have now decided to get really ballsy and leave a message. Like they ruined it for the rest of you. I don't know what to tell you.
My introversion ruined it before the robocallers did.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, please. It's
I
your
was just
show.
gonna say I'm proud to report that I haven't answered a phone call at work in like 4 years.
Wow.
Yes.
How'd you get away with that?
Goals.
The government said go home and don't talk to anybody or be around anybody.
There you
And
go.
then I've just been fortunate to be able to work from home, so I wasn't in the office. And the times when
Okay.
I was in the office, I just hit that decline button.
There you go. I don't even know my work number anymore. I'm like, call my cell phone.
So it is the goal for the podcasting and everything else that you are doing online, merch, etc., to ultimately replace the day job, or is it just supplemental?
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I could see us that definitely getting to a spot where it replaces our, I guess, regular income.
Hmm.
I have my own business, sincerely an introvert.com, which my goal is to replace my work income. But yeah, I mean, either one of those, both of those, I'm all for it.
What's your business like? What type of operation are you running?
So I sell introvert inspired apparel, so t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, all that good stuff with
Ah,
introverted related designs.
what's the site?
Sincerely an introvert.com.
All right, yeah, we're gonna have to plug that in the show notes.
Love
I like how
it.
I like how we're being interviewed on our own podcast. So
I love it. I love
it's-
it. We should do this more often. It's kind of
yes.
nice. Take the pressure off, but we also get to like just like share and plug.
Yeah,
The
but I
site looks nice too, kind of
appreciate it.
social, kind of not. I might have to cop that one.
Hey man, go
Do I
ahead.
have that one? Is that the one you gave me? Or
I
no,
think
I just
no, I got you I gave you the introvert no.
the classic,
Yes, true statement.
the original.
Oh, we
Yeah,
got hoodies and
that was my first
everything.
design.
Yeah, it's so I Jay and I actually met because of his merch line. I think I had asked him to make custom merch. Which I guess eventually I'm getting my wish because he's gonna be making the podcast merch. So we came full circle.
Yeah, yeah. You've seen. I'm sure you show you some of the designs for the shirts.
Yeah.
I think I don't know.
Are you moving product, Jay? Are you the plug?
For introverts, yeah.
No, I would love to pick your brain at some point about this because I actually have an idea for a merch line and I've got some preliminary designs as well. But the ADHD part of me is making it difficult to get over the hump. Do either of you identify as neurodivergent or have been diagnosed? Just wondering what kind of company I'm in here.
I have ADHD or sorry, ADD, but I don't see anyone for it and I don't take anything for it. I just kind of deal with it and make
Yeah.
it everyone else's problem.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yes,
Including poor Jay.
Steph shares the love. Like she's good like that. I do not have ADD, ADHD. I overthink like a motherfucker, but I don't have either of those. It's interesting because I make content, a lot of obviously introverted content for Facebook, my website, and Instagram, and I get questions about whether I have ADHD because I guess the characteristics of introversion sometimes overlap with ADHD, I guess, but
Mm.
I don't have it, and I don't make content for it.
So So that means that I can be confident that all of those items under your 2024 goals are going to get checked off.
Oh yeah.
Me, I'll spend like a day or two creating a board like that and then do absolutely nothing about it. It's,
Yeah,
all the dopamine is in the planning, not the execution. Execution is
right.
very difficult for me. I'm always chasing that dopamine hit, like the maximum amount of pleasure for the least amount of effort.
I hear you. My idea of productivity is adding things to my to-do list that I'm never gonna do.
Ultimately, where I would love to be is have a lifestyle where there's nothing on the to-do list and nothing on the calendar, and I could just wake up and
Mm,
decide that day, what do I want to do today? Where's the spark that I can chase this
there
day,
you go.
this moment, and not just have a whole bunch of obligations on the plate.
I
Nice.
like that. That's awesome. I actually I don't know if you're familiar with the author and podcaster Jay Shetty,
Yep.
but I just finished his book, Think Like a Monk, and
Hmm. I've read it.
there's oh great, yeah. So there was a whole section about instead of to-do list, you should think about creating a to-be list.
Hmm.
And while that resonated, I haven't done anything with that yet. It's a great idea. It's like cool. I think maybe I'll do that eventually.
For me, like this list behind me, it's again, yeah, they're my business goals. I have another one right over there, for my sales funnel, but it really is. I guess for me, instead of making having the dopamine hit, be making a list, for me, it's just getting everything outside of my head so that my head is clear because I'll have 100 ideas in my head and they're just running around, to the point where I'll get maybe one thing done and feel bad because I didn't get all 100 things done. So for
Mm,
me, it's just just getting everything out of my head and then picking one or two things at a time and focusing on those things. Because I guess for us, for introverts, like I said, we'll try to do everything on this list and get mad because we only did two things, not realizing that the two things we chose take time to do, and you can only do so much in a day. So
yeah,
the hard part for me is really being content with achieving one or two things that I set out to do in a given day or a given time period.
right.
I'm sitting here in complete awe at just the idea that you can put anything down on a list and then finish that thing, whether it's two things or 100 things. Like, wow, this guy actually completes tasks. I need to understand how that works because that is a completely foreign concept to me.
Wow, that's
I'm the
funny.
guy, like I need the pressure or the looming deadline to get anything done. Like we talked
Hmm.
about, you talk about presenting at work, for example. If I've got a big presentation that I got to give, 9 times out of 10, I'm finishing the slide deck like 5 minutes before I actually have to present the material in the meeting, and I'm just completely winging it in the meeting itself. And
I
that's the
feel
only way
that.
I can get stuff done. If I've got a week to do it, it's going to be, Abraham Lincoln's, 6 days of sharpening the axe. And then, 6 days and 11 hours. And then on that, at that 11th hour, then we actually start getting stuff done.
Yeah, I mean, I like to tell myself that I'm spending those 6 days that I'm sharpening the axe, like thinking about it and coming up with ideas, and that's part of the process. But it really just, I just I can't put the pen to paper.
Yep. So many ideas in the graveyard just because they never
So,
made it off the page.
or they never made.
Those are the ones that hurt when you just lose a
Yeah,
good one that you had. And yeah,
yeah.
that's a tough one. I've been trying to do. This is what I started telling before we actually hit the record button. I've been trying to do a better job managing my dopamine with
Hmm.
supplements. So there's this one that I've been taking called L-tyrosine, which is like a precursor for dopamine production in the brain. And you got to like top it off twice or so throughout the day, but it does make a pretty significant difference. And so what I do is I'll take some about an hour before I've got to show up for something like this, for example, or if I need to sit down and get some work done and power through a task. I'll take the tyrosine an hour before, and then do something to actually generate some dopamine right as I'm about to get started. So that's what the ice cream was about, the sugar, the sweetness. And what it does, the tyrosine helps your brain create more dopamine, because folks that are ADHD, neurodivergent, they have a deficiency in many cases. I don't want to generalize, but in many cases, they have a deficiency. One time I got a blood test done, and they checked for some of those neurotransmitters, and the practitioner was like, how are you even getting out of bed in the morning? Like your neurotransmitters are so far, below where the standard marker is, that they're barely even registering on the chart. And one of those was dopamine. And so I'm like, okay, I need to do a better job managing that, knowing that naturally I'm just very low on the scale. So I'll take some tyrosine, and then do something that's supposed to generate a dopamine response. And with the tyrosine in the system, it creates a little bit more of a flood of dopamine. So then I can be on for something like this, or on for a presentation or a job interview. I've gone the other route too, where I've done dopamine detoxes, no social media, no TV, no movies, no nothing, really just staring at the wall, working out, or doing something creative like writing or making music, and anything else outside of that is off limits. And that actually made a very big difference. The 30 or so days I was able to actually stick to that. First week, it was like a huge hangover. Like it was like headaches, and I'm walking around indoors with like some dark Prada shades on, looking like I'm, Kanye West trying to dodge the paparazzi or something, just because light hurt and everything hurt. Just life itself hurt for that first week, as the brain is trying to recalibrate and get acclimated to not having any stimulation. But then after that, the floodgates of creativity open and productivity, and it was like I've got nothing else to do but work. So work actually became fun, and I was able to power through task lists and everything. It was an interesting experience. It makes me think this is how people might have lived before the advent of technology and all these distractions that we have in our society, where it really is a minimalistic existence, where it's just the people around you, the things in front of you that you got to get done, and maybe some good food to eat, and that's it.
I love this.
So which one, I guess, is there one you prefer? Like getting the dopamine hit, or the dopamine detox?
Yeah,
Is one better than the other?
they both feel the same. It's just, I guess, two different paths to get to that same feeling. So with the detox, the threshold of what my brain considers stimulating is lowered. And so before, oh, there's a sunset, cool, I've seen 1,000 of those. But during the detox, it's like, no, we need to pull over and stare into the horizon, because this is beautiful. And it moves the needle in that way, versus the supplementation. I'll still feel really good, but not because of sunsets. But a moment like this, having the dopamine stores topped off, like I'm having a great time. And or hanging out, or doing any number of things that are already fun, it just amplifies it to a million degrees. I think, to answer the question, if I had to pick one, I think I would go the minimalistic, dopamine detox lifestyle, because that doesn't require anything external. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of recalibrating the brain, and then everything that I need is already within me, and that's the place where I like to operate. Like I prefer to remove and trim the fat, as opposed to adding more stuff, if I can pick between the two. But it's difficult, because some people only communicate over Instagram, for example. Like that's the only way I can keep in contact with a few people in the DMs. And the second I load that app up to respond to a message, or reach out to someone, inevitably I'm going to start doom scrolling, and then it's a wrap. It's a wrap from there, and then that just becomes a domino effect. And then next thing you know, I'm like, smoking weed and watching porn, and it's just all downhill from there.
Oh my God. So I love that you said that, because first of all, I was kind of hoping you were gonna say you prefer the detox, because it's just a more, I guess, a healthier route.
Yeah.
So I am in the state, like, I resonate so deeply with like everything that you just said. Like I do the detox, I do the supplementation. I find I agree. I think the detox is definitely where I prefer. And I've slowly, but what I struggle with is when I hear no, even if it's from myself and my own inner voice, I
Yeah.
want to do it.
Yeah.
Um, like I immediately am like, oh no, I can't do this. All right, let me figure out a loophole. Let me figure out a workaround.
Yep. You start negotiating
Um,
with yourself.
exactly.
That's
That's a
what I do
dangerous
anyway. Yeah.
road. Yeah.
Hmm.
So what I do like is I'm slowly taking on more like I'm finding more creative ways to detox that are still fun for me. So like rather than saying like, oh, no more binge listening to podcasts all day long. I'm like, okay, I really want to binge listen to podcasts all day long. However, instead of binge listening to all the big ones that are about reality TV or celebrities, which really are not doing anything for me, I'm only going to listen to indie podcasts by people in my community. And in order to move on to the next one, my rule of thumb is I need to leave them a really nice, thoughtful review before I move on.
Oh,
And so
nice.
now I'm like making it more fun and more valuable to everybody involved. That way I'm not just, binge listening to random shit about, Sophia Richie's like closet. Like who cares? Like stuff that I don't care about.
Yeah.
So
Just junk
it's
calories
really
for the brain.
helping. Right. I'm just sort of shifting the habits to like, okay, like if I'm gonna be on Threads all day, like my rule of thumb is rather than just, I don't know, scrolling my feed, respond to comments in a thoughtful way before I start posting things.
Hmm.
And like I give myself a time limit and like after that time limit, I don't delete the app anymore because I was finding when I deleted it, I would find a loophole and like go on the computer. But
It's so relatable.
like yeah, it's so funny. Like it's so ridiculous. But like now when I like blow through that time limit, then I move on to okay, I'm gonna binge indie podcasts. Like I move on to the next bingeable problem that I have, but at least
Yep.
it's a problem that I'm doing in a good way.
So you still got your stimmies, but you use them in a more mindful way.
Yeah.
And
They're
and
more
in and
there's
in a way
yeah.
that actually contributes to others as well. Like it brings values to other, whether you're leaving a review or a thoughtful response. It's
Yeah.
not just you reaping all the, stimulating benefits in a vacuum, but you're sharing the
Exactly.
love. Yeah, that's
Right.
dope. So
Yeah.
can I ask you, Jay, what since I'm the host now, by the way, in case it hasn't been
You
clear
hijacked it. I love
Yeah,
it.
your Drewski takeover episode.
Can I ask you, Jay, what challenges do you face as someone who doesn't have to deal with the internal resistance, or do you have like that same internal friction, but maybe it shows up in a different way for you?
When you say internal friction, what do you mean?
So as Steph just mentioned, she says, okay, I'm telling myself I'm not going to do this thing anymore.
Mhm.
And then the self says, well, who the fuck are you to tell me what to do? I'm going to do the thing and I'm going to do it even harder because you told me not to do it. Or me on the flip side, I say self do a thing and self is just like, psh, I'm going to do something else altogether. Like sometimes I even at work, like I'll procrastinate on the main thing by doing the other things that aren't relevant, but still need to get done. But I'm not going to do the main thing because I told myself that that's the thing that needed to get done. And I think that comes part and parcel with the whole neurodivergent thing. I'm
Hmm.
just curious because I pretty much everyone in my circle is brain fried like me. So I don't come across too many folks out in the wild that are like, no, I can just, create a to-do list and then do the things on the list. And I'm just like, wow, what's that all about? So I'm wondering for you, do you face any challenges in getting stuff done that may not necessarily fall within the lane of neurodivergence, but something different other than, I just can't do it because I told myself to do it.
Yeah, I think for me, kind of how I mentioned earlier, with me, the challenge is not getting frozen. And what I mean by that is, I'll make a list of 10 things. And instead of just, realistically choosing two, three, four, maybe five, I want to get all of them done in a day. And then it's a matter of, okay, well, which one should I do? And, do I do this one? What if I don't get them all done? And I end up getting, you know, I get so worked up on the possibility of not completing all of them that you end up not doing all of them. So the challenge is, like I said, picking one or two and just being content with knocking those off the list. If you get them early, get those done and, get them done early, tag something else. Also, I've gotten better at making a more realistic list. Instead of 10 things, do five, and then tomorrow
Mm.
put five other things on the list. So it is really kind of self-checking and just kind of trying to keep, I guess, a foot in reality for me, because I want to get everything done in one shot. I want to hit a 100 pointer, and there are no 100 pointers. It's layups and dunks and occasional threes. So yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
you have to be content with that, and it's okay because if you get something done, maybe you get one thing done all day, but it's actually something that's beneficial. So for me, yesterday, the only thing I really did was I put out some content and I put out an ad for my business. That might not seem like a lot to folks, but for me, it was big because ads help help my business, and it's a very important piece of my business. And it's one of the goals that I have for this year, which is to run ads all year. So just it really comes down to just being more realistic for me. Um, Also, sometimes I can actually focus too hard, meaning I can kind of put blinders on to the entire world and try and just zero in on a particular task, and that's not the healthiest either.
Mhm.
So it's really sometimes just taking a step back and saying, hey, is this actually the most important thing in this moment? Can you do something else in conjunction instead of? So I kind of uh, fight that battle as well sometimes. And
Mhm.
then, like Steph said, every now and then I'll turn on TikTok and, 5 hours later, but and part of it is, I know that I'm able to focus. I sometimes need to be able to focus on multiple things at the same time because I may be dealing with something that's just not stimulating, like work. So I need to be able to find some other sort of stimulation while I do this. But TikTok is very addictive. But what I've kind of trained myself to do is, okay, if I'm going to go on TikTok and actually do research, research for ideas for content. Look
Mm-hmm.
at what my fellow creators and what my fellow introverts are doing as far as their content, things that they sell, the kind of business that they run. So it's something productive, and that's what I'll do. I'll look for things and save them, and then try to turn it into my own kind of content. Like I'm working on a reel that I saw someone else do. I want to put my own flair on it. So just it's really about trying to be as disciplined as I can, and making sure that I self-correct to the best of my abilities. But it's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, discipline is a foreign concept for me, but I've been listening to a lot of Alpha Bro content, so I'm trying to like get that ingrained in my head because they talk about discipline and stuff a lot. The Andrew Tates of the world, and I know that he can be a controversial figure, and that sometimes draws the ire of people even mentioning his name. But I'm somebody that likes to be fairly open minded
Mhm.
to a variety of different messaging, and for me when I listen to some of his material, I see, okay, a lot of the stuff he's saying just to be inflammatory for attention.
That was a lot of his older stuff, though. His newer stuff is so different, and I think it's fantastic. But go
Yeah.
ahead. I'm
Okay.
gonna get
Yeah.
in
So
trouble. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that,
we'll
but
both be in the gulag together. So yeah, and I mean, and that was something I was going to mention too. Like once he got his audience, it seemed like there was a pivot in his messaging. And at the core of it, for me, a lot of it is about discipline. It's about work ethic. It's about developing yourself into a more capable person so that you can go out into the world and not just get lost in the sea of people, and you've got resources at your disposal so that you can wield a little bit of influence, a little bit of power. And for me, most importantly, freedom. When you reach a certain level, I associate it with just, primarily capital. Once you have a certain dollar amount at your disposal and you don't have to worry about being political at work, you've got what I call fuck you money. You go into work and somebody looks at you the wrong way and you're like, I don't have to take that anymore. I don't have to be diplomatic about things. I can, actually maintain boundaries across the board. Versus, for me, I don't know how you guys operate. For me, I do a lot of code switching at work. I do a lot of even shape shifting to some extent. You know what I mean? The way that I show up in that environment is not the way that I would choose to show up on a day-to-day basis in the real world if I didn't have to shuck and jive for a check. And I feel like it's that same way in other environments that I find myself in as well. I kind of become the chameleon and make sure that I fit in with the vibe of the room and the people that I'm engaging with. And a lot of that is because of acceptance for the goal of either networking so that, there's other opportunities on the horizon that I might be able to capitalize on. It's like, if I don't have to play that game anymore, then I feel like I would show up differently in life, definitely at work. And so going back to the Andrew Tate thing, that's part of what his message seems to be as well. Get your status up, get your bread up, and do that through discipline and developing yourself so that you can be free.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, now that he's toned it down and maybe not used the most offensive language as he used to, he's got a lot of interesting stuff to say. And I'm the kind of person that people are like, don't listen to this person, deplatform this person. I'm like, what did they say? I want to hear. I want to hear it all. Like, I'm very drawn to like what I'm not supposed to be drawn to. I don't know if it's like the ADD or just the rebellious nature or what it is, but he's fascinating. But going off of Andrew Tate, another creator who's kind of like him is Andy Frisella. Have you
Not
heard of
familiar with
him?
that one. No. How do
So
you know how to spell that offhand? I can look it up.
I think Frisella.
While Google
He
stood up, is Andrew Tate still on house arrest?
I don't know. I think he's off.
Oh, he's off. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
I've seen this guy, Andy Frisella.
yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, he does the 75 hard challenge. It's like what
Yeah.
he's famous for. So I'm actually on day 56 of that.
Holy
Um
shit.
Yeah, and it has given me, if you're looking for discipline, I highly recommend that because it just it gives you a set of 7 tasks that you have to do every single day, and if you don't do it, you start over. And I do not want to start over.
Yeah,
Um,
I hear that. So
so it's
isn't part of that like working out twice in a single day? Are you
yeah.
following that strictly?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. What are your two
So
workouts for today?
so I do a push pull shoulders, glutes, legs. So that's 5 days. And then I
Uh,
do 2 days of spin. And then the outdoor workout is I just walk at least 10,000 steps outside every day.
wait, are you jacked?
I mean,
You got
I'm in pretty good shape.
She's
I'm not
flexing
in
right now.
I'm not in the best shape that I've been, but that's because I ate a lot of cookies over Christmas and I'm still kind of trying to get rid of that. Um,
Well, so that's physique wise, but what about performance in the gym?
but
Are you at your peak or near the peak?
I mean, I would say like no.
Okay.
I've been in really good shape. Like before my wedding, I was like in excellent shape, like physically and like performance wise. Um, I'm so clumsy. I have two left feet and like zero hand-eye coordination. So I don't know that I'll ever be the kind of person that like is a high performer in the gym, but I feel good, so
Yeah, that's what it's all
whatever.
about. Yeah.
Exactly. And the reading is the best part for me.
The what is?
The reading, because you have to read 10 pages every day.
Ah, okay.
But it's like I love the way that he does that because when you read a self-help book, like it has to be a nonfiction book. When you
Mhm.
read a nonfiction book and like it's really good, like it's really tempting to want to read 30 pages in a day, but then it doesn't sink in. So I the first thing I do in the morning, every single morning, is I read my 10 pages because throughout the rest of the day it marinates. And I'm like
Mm.
thinking about it and like
Hmm.
it really sticks. So I that's my favorite part of the challenge.
Is he one of those guys, Andy, that catches a lot of flack online too for being like,
Oh,
the
yeah.
dude alpha bro?
Oh, totally. He's not as much so as Andrew Tate. Um, but he like got like a very no nonsense vibe about him. He'll like one of his episodes of his podcast, he's like, most people can't do this challenge. Like most people are losers, like that kind of like talk.
Yeah.
So I don't really love the way that he phrases things, but I think that the way that I think his approach to his message is, it resonates and it rubs people the wrong way for a reason, and that's because there's some truth to it.
Hmm. Yeah. I have a love-hate with that type of messaging too. Like I'm not the one to communicate that way, but
Right,
it's effective when I hear it and
right.
I'm in certain headspaces. It never offends me. And even Tate's earlier stuff where he was just completely inflammatory and abrasive, I thought that was just funny. He was a character
Right.
to me versus something that I, internalized and took seriously and got triggered by. Um, and the same way with, just that messaging in general, it's not the way that I would choose to show up. It's not how I like to engage with people in the way that I want people to feel after they've had an exchange with me. But
Mhm.
God, it works for
Yeah.
me. It helps cut through the nonsense. And it's just like, yeah, there is a lot of truth there. What you said something earlier about deplatforming and how, people kind of start grandstanding and soapboxing against certain people and even certain ideologies and topics that come up online.
Hmm.
Do either of you have any thoughts on the whole cancel culture thing? Do you think it's good for society that people are kind of creating these mobs, so to speak, and vying
I
for
hate
social
it.
change? Okay.
Hate it.
So I think, well,
Why?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think that when you try to cancel people and cut people down and take their platform away, all you're doing is sending them down a rabbit hole of, the dark web or, a lot of those people could end up in really dark places on the internet where that are not controlled or not regulated, so to speak, and you don't know what is going on there because you can't see it. And all it's doing is fueling and inciting them and making it so much worse, not just like what they're saying online, but like what they're feeling inside. And I just think that's a very dangerous place to put people, is making them feel like they're backed into a corner and making them feel like nobody hears them or cares what they have to say, especially the craziest ones. I'm not a fan of cancel culture because I think that it makes things a whole lot worse. And it doesn't make people stop thinking that or stop feeling that. It just shuts the conversation down.
Over to you, Jay.
I guess I have a slightly different take. I agree. I don't think the internet mob or fake outrage is beneficial. I think we live, unfortunately, in a society where you know if I don't agree with you, you must be wrong and you must go away. As opposed to allowing for one a space to disagree, but also a space for nuance. A lot of times, you have very short attention span, so sometimes the message is delivered in this compacted ball, and we don't have the span to actually unravel it and think about it. Um, TikTok and social media doesn't help. Um, Unfortunately, I think that's what people that has become the definition, I guess, of cancel culture. What cancel culture originally was, you mess up, say something inappropriate, do something inappropriate, instead of acknowledging your misstep, you double or triple down, and then what happens is you suffer whatever those consequences are. I think that a lot of the at least high profile people that complain the loudest about cancel culture are actually complaining about consequences. And I think that's a very important distinction. I'll use well, I won't use any names because I don't want to get in trouble, but there is a comic who tends to make what some will call transphobic jokes. Instead of trying to understand where that feeling is coming from, he tends to double and triple down. He also has a habit of punching down,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Oh, we not
understanding,
okay. I know what we're talking about
Yeah.
now.
yeah, and that understandably may rub people the wrong way. And he's complaining about cancel culture, but his issue is the backlash from what he
Mm.
says. And again, that's two different things. He's not being canceled, he's being held accountable because you know, you used to be able to say things 10, 20, 15 years ago. You used to be able to say certain things. You can't do it right now. You used to be able to say the N-word with impunity 50 years ago. Can't do it now. Things change, times change. A lot of other comics recognize this, change the material, and grow. This one seems focused on kind of just digging in his heels for the sake of digging in his heels. So I think
Right.
we
That's a
really,
good point.
yeah. So when we say cancel culture, are we talking about actually canceling somebody, or are we talking about holding them accountable? Because again, the people from what I've seen, the people who complain the loudest about being canceled are the people who just don't want to face the consequences for the things that they do or say. And a lot of times, the things they do or say
Right.
may not. I'll just say that they may be offensive. They may be racist, or they may be transphobic, or they may be whatever. And again, all you have to
Mm-hmm.
do is say, you know what, you might be right. Even if I don't agree, you know what, I can see where this group is coming from. Let me
Yeah.
not double down on it. Like, don't let me at least not just ignore everything they're saying. And a lot of the things that folks are saying aren't new. We're just now in the space where we're giving them space to actually say it. You know, I'm trying. What's a good example? Um, Gay rights. Just for to throw it out there. That's it's not new. There have always been gay and lesbian people. It's just we're in a space where they have more space to say, hey, this isn't cool. We're going to push back. But there's always been they've never been comfortable with being called the F word. They've never been comfortable with being the butt of jokes. They just were in a position where they could really say anything that could affect change. So when we say cancel culture,
Right.
are we actually talking about being canceled, or are we talking about being held accountable? I agree. If you mess up one time, or if you say something that's offensive, you shouldn't lose your job. You shouldn't lose your career. You shouldn't have to go, uh, be forced to go into the dark web, or go hide under a rock. I don't agree with that. At the same time, you do need to say, hey, I think I messed up there. I apologize, and move on. Like, if you
Mm-hmm.
just acknowledge, apologize, and move on, 95% of the stuff wouldn't happen. But you have people who just double down, and I think
Yeah.
folks get that's where it gets messed up between canceling and being held accountable. That's just how I see it.
Right. I love that because there's a difference between, I think, Like my big issue is shutting people down. Like I do not like that because there's no room for growth there. If you shut people down and you tell them to shut up, how are they ever like how are they ever going to it's like sending people to jail and throwing away the key. Like that's not helping them rehabilitate or learn or grow or evolve. But if we give people the space to grow and evolve and they don't, like I get what you're saying. Like
Yeah,
they're
correct. Like
choosing.
you definitely need to give people grace to grow and grace to correct themselves.
Mhm.
No one's perfect. My thing is once you've been given that the opportunity, what are you gonna do with it? But you're absolutely
I
right. We
guess my
definitely
question,
give someone. Everyone deserves at least one chance to say, "Hey, you know what? My bad."
my question would be, who gets to determine what standards others are held to? Because that's where the cancel culture and the mob and the group think start getting a little fuzzy for me. A lot of it seems to be, if you don't think the way that I think you should think, if you don't use the specific terms that I think you should use, then you're wrong. But a lot of these standards themselves seem very subjective. And I'll give you an example of just a little minor experience I had on Threads. I in a post had used the word tribe, and someone jumped in the comment section. They're like, "Oh, you can't say
Wait,
tribe."
tribe? Oh, tribe. Okay, tribe. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
tribe. You can't say tribe because that's offensive to Native
Oh
Americans,
my
and we're
God.
using different words now. And a whole bunch of people came in under that comment with the likes and the pile on agreement. And so, I make a separate post and I ask, is the word tribe offensive? And I did a little tongue in cheek thing, and I said, watch out, if you say tribe, you're at risk of getting scalped. And that was inflammatory, and I did that on purpose just
Oh,
just to make the
damn. You're
just to make the message. Yeah, I did that. I was trolling a little bit. But what was interesting was, and I'm not trying to turn this into a racial thing, but I find that a lot of that, those who are very vocal about word policing and trying to shun others because of specific word choices that are seemingly innocuous, like tribe. Like, okay, Native Americans don't have a monopoly on the word tribe. Let's talk about the tribes of Israel, all the tribes that are mentioned in the Bible, African tribes, indigenous tribes of other, like, how can one community say this word is offensive? But anyway, what was interesting was, in response to that post, there were actual Native Americans in the comments saying, no, this isn't a thing. That's a white people problem. And I'm just quoting verbatim. And, there seems to be a makeup, a specific demographic that really leans into this idea of canceling and word policing as a form of superiority. From what it seems, I'm just psychoanalyzing, armchair psychologist, do not have a degree or any credentials whatsoever, but that's it comes across as, I've found this thing that gives me a leg up on my fellow human, and I'm going to exploit it to the maximum extent possible to make me feel superior and make you feel inferior, as opposed to, let's have a conversation about this. I do agree that no, we shouldn't just be disparaging entire groups based on whatever race, sex, gender, health status, disability or not. But I hear your point as well, Jay, that it's about accountability. I guess going back to my original question, some things are pretty black and white, right? Like, okay, if you're on the Nazi, bigotry, that's a hard no, right? But if we're talking about tribe and whether or not that word is offensive or not, or another one that came up was I had made a reference to what I said, something about somebody committed suicide or they were going to commit suicide. And that phrase, commit suicide, is apparently now offensive because something about ableism. I don't even remember the exact explanation, but apparently we're not supposed to say that anymore, commit suicide. And it's like, at what point, where do we draw that line where things become acceptable, and who is the one actually making these decisions? And against the backdrop of those questions, have either of you ever read a book called 1984?
I have, yes.
Orwell. It feels like the society that is evolving before us is becoming very Orwellian with respect to that, because so in the Orwell culture in 1984, certain things you just could not say or else off with your head. And then, the whole technology piece as well. It's very interesting watching how some of the predictions in that book are coming true in real time, not in the exact same way. So in that, in the Orwell landscape, everything was real dictatorial and, ironclad fist, and you just get disappeared if you spoke against the regime, or if they had the thought police, right? So if you even thought the wrong way, then you'd get disappeared, or you'd go into retraining camps, etc. In our society, it's more the behaviors are more socially influenced. So it's not Big Brother saying you can't say this, you can't do that, but there's a social influence taking place. Some of it being driven by bad actors, some of it being driven by technology itself. So people going into Reddit and deploying an army of bots onto a certain subject, a controversial subject on Reddit that shapes the way people think. And people are of the impression that, because, 500 people said it, that this was the correct thing. This was the correct way to think. This was the correct thing to say, that this must be it. This must be the way, not realizing that 495 of those 500 were actually just AI bots going to work on any given topic thread. So I don't know. So I think about some of that stuff too when we start talking about what's socially acceptable and what's not, and what's really driving some of these standards that are at play that people are now being held to.
Yeah. So definitely.
I know I said a lot there.
Yeah, but a lot of good questions. I'll try to address them. First off, you're absolutely correct in that, some of this stuff is black and white, but a whole lot of shit is subjective. And unfortunately, the people who, have appointed themselves, judge, jury, and executioner of these things probably shouldn't be in those positions. I don't know where the line is for, excuse me, a lot of this stuff. I tend to agree with you in that art and expression should not be policed. At the same time, with a lot of us harp and push on freedom of expression, but freedom of expression is not freedom from consequences, whatever they may be, good or bad. All consequences aren't bad. Sometimes they're good. But we have to understand and accept that with the good sometimes comes the bad. Kind of how you were saying earlier, Drew, when it came to the word tribe. One of the things you mentioned was, yes, there are a lot of people who had an issue with that word, but there are also Native Americans who was like, I'm fine with that. And that's one of the questions that I typically ask myself is like, okay, what is this group actually? We're talking about this group. What do they actually think? And a lot of times we don't ask that question. This is probably I'll say this is probably as far into the race conversation that I want to venture into, but certain people have a habit historically of centering themselves and how they feel, and it becomes about what they feel as opposed to what the subject group actually thinks about this.
Right.
An example would be Redskin. There's a certain segment of Native Americans who have no problem with it. There's another group who does. Which side do you go with? I don't know, but I just know dismissing either one isn't good. But I also know that for whatever reason we just don't have the spacing, or not the space, but I guess the will or want to actually discuss these things and add nuance to it, because it is subjective. And like you said, Drew, like where do you draw that line? Some of this shit is black and white. Majority of it probably isn't. Um, I don't, but I definitely don't think vilifying someone just because he says something that I don't agree with is the way to go.
Sometimes it's okay to come across something that rubs you the wrong way. Maybe you get triggered, and instead of launching into a tirade and starting up petition.org petitions about it, it's okay to just say, this isn't for me, and just leave it. Just leave it at that. You don't have to vocalize
Right.
it. You don't have to. Um, Now, where does the accountability piece come in? The accountability piece come in that Jay was referring to. And I guess my question to that is, you know, does the way that we are trying to hold people accountable right now actually work in terms of changing behaviors, which is ultimately the goal, right? You're not just trying to push stuff underground. You want people to actually have these epiphanies where they go, yeah, okay, I can see things from your perspective. Like in Dave's group, if he sat down with a coalition of transgender folks, and they really laid it out. Oh, my daughter was the subject of violence because of her transgenderism, and some of the stories that might get told in a conversation like that. And Dave goes, wow, I never really considered it from that perspective. Maybe I might need to make some changes to the way that I address that community or that subject matter in general. That would be a good use of time. But I don't see that happening when you just get people writing all these hit piece articles, and then people going into the comment sections to co-sign them, like, yeah, Dave Chappelle's trash, and this is why, and blah blah blah.
Right. Why would he listen? Why would
right?
he come to the table if he's just going to be attacked anyway? Because it's just going to seem like an apology tour.
Yeah. And so is that really accomplishing the goal of holding
Mm.
people accountable? Like I wish we had a better way to really have these difficult conversations, because whatever we're doing online right now, from my perspective, when it comes to controversial stuff and when it comes to trying to hold people accountable to the things that they say, all it really does is cause them to dig their heels in and push back in most cases. Like, you can look at Kanye West as another example of that. And I'm curious, Steph, as a Jewish girl, where do you stand on Kanye West? Does the comments that he made, did those come across as anti-Semitic to you? And what is anti-Semitism? I said that right.
You're probably asking the wrong person what it is. Were they offensive? I don't know. I mean, he's kind of like, I was like, he looks like an idiot. Like, it says more about him than it does about Jewish people. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, he's obviously got a lot of issues. I'm sorry that he ran into a couple Jewish people in Hollywood that pissed him off and he decided to attach it to all Jews. He's missing out on a great group of people, in my humble opinion. And like, sucks to suck for him. Like, you just lost a bunch of money. I don't think that he deserved to be canceled. But then how do this, what I don't understand is the same people that canceled him and really handed his ass to him are the same people that are not really standing up for what's going on in Israel. So it's like, I don't really understand. Like, were you offended by his comments? Is that why you canceled him? Or was that all just it was easier to come down on one person and attack them than it is to come down on a whole bunch of people? I don't know.
Yeah, you're touching on the selective outrage there.
Yeah,
That
it's so weird.
It's inconsistent. That's the other piece that really rubs me the wrong way about the mob, is that the mob is very selective and inconsistent about how it applies its social justice.
Right.
I'd,
Like,
I'd
why
love to
is
see
there
some
outrage
consistency.
about that comment? But where's the outrage about like violently slaughtering 1,200 or however many Jewish people in a day? Like, why is that justifiable? I don't understand, and I really don't want to even go down this path. Um, but
It's a
like,
thorny path. Yeah.
it is, but it's I, to me when those comments came out, I was like, It says more about him than it does about Jews, so whatever. Like, if you want to cancel him, okay, but I'm not offended by him.
Well, that's
Mm.
actually, a good point into, I guess, to kind of steer the discussion in slightly different direction.
Yeah, because we're getting
Um,
off the rails here. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, it's a good discussion. You know, so it's selective outrage is real, and I guess part of the issue with accountability, is that, like, kind of how we all touched upon, we hold people accountable by trying to take away their things, and that's not like
Like,
that's
that's
not
backing them into a corner. It's
yeah, like
how is that?
that's
Yeah.
not accountability. Like Drew said, if you sit down with someone, say, hey, this is why we said what we said, how we felt, and hopefully from there have some sort of meaningful dialogue. Yeah, and then that person goes about doing the work, not necessarily changing everything, but saying, like, yeah, I might need to tweak this. I might need to rethink how I package and deliver this. Like that's accountability. But there's also an element that I see that I think, and Kanye will probably be, in my opinion, a good example of this. You know, is he being anti-Semitic, or is he just being an asshole? And I think, for me, a lot of times he just comes across as an asshole. It doesn't, some of the things he says now, that doesn't mean what he's saying isn't anti-Semitic. But I guess my question is, is someone simply being an asshole, or do they actually mean this thing? And does that matter? I don't know.
Right.
That
Like,
that's the question right there. Does it matter what a Kanye West has to say in some podcast rant on the Drink Champs Club, or wherever? Like, this whole focus on celebrityism is baffling to me.
they're
It's
people, and who cares? Like,
it's high school. Like, the world is still in high school mode, which is crazy to me. The celebrities are the popular kids that everybody talks about. You
are
know what
you
I mean?
quoting Bowling for Soup by
Am
any
I?
chance?
Am,
That's a great song. I'll send it to you later.
Oh yeah, please. I'm all good, always up for a good music recommendation. But it's like, yeah, like, we as just a species, we're still so socially primitive. We're technologically advanced and socially primitive. We've got all these red buttons and ways to connect with each other. Um, but at the end of the day, we're still just chucking spears at each other for sport. Like, we're all in the Roman Colosseum still just slaughtering each other. Now it's with words and emotional and psychological attacks instead of physically. But it's like, to the same end, to tear down your fellow man, and for what? And I just don't understand how we have such an opportunity in front of us with all this technology that we have to connect with one another and do really cool things, come together and do cool things, and we spend it debating Kanye West and talking about what Kim Kardashian had for breakfast, as opposed to, like, organizing ourselves around some sort of major goals and changes. We wait for the government to do stuff, and the government's not going to do anything. They're just going to continue to, like, Nancy Pelosi's getting rich on her insider trading.
Right.
What incentive does she have to really make things better for the ordinary person? But my message is, we don't have to wait for a Nancy Pelosi or a Congress or any government body to make the changes that we want to see in the world. We've
Hmm.
got we've got the access to connect with people. We've got the tools in place to organize and collaborate and pool resources. Why are we not doing more with what we have?
Because we'd rather like focus on, the one thing that some person that we hold on a pedestal said, out of like, than actually stand up and take accountability for ourselves. I think that's really, because change happens when we all take accountability and responsibility to make it happen. But if we just, instead of taking that responsibility and accountability, if we just attack somebody else for how they're being bad and how they're like the boogeyman and who's making life horrible, then we get to deflect and not take that accountability for ourselves. And we can
Hmm.
just we can just continue to complain about how the world sucks instead of doing something about it.
We're segueing into world domination, by the way.
Uh-oh.
Just in case that wasn't clear. Uh, but wondering if Jay has any thoughts before I start riffing on world domination.
Now let's finish this game of world domination. What was the game of world domination? That board game called?
There's a game.
Yeah, there was a board. I forget what it was called, but it was basically a game of like world domination.
We're not talking about Monopoly, are we? So
I
they're
mean,
act.
I mean, if we're being cynical, yes, I guess the cynical. But no, it was actually a game. I can't remember the name, but it was basically the point was to rule the world.
I'm looking it up right now, trying to anyway. Okay, Google's got way too many. Risk, the game of global domination. Is that it?
I think that's it.
Risk.
Risk,
Okay.
Monopoly, same shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
bad at
mean,
all of them.
when I say world domination, what it really means is about upending all the current power structures that are maintaining the institutions that we currently have in place and reimagining society just like from the ground up. Like if we were to just pause everything and say, okay, we're going to figure out a new way to do things, a new way to do life and the world in a way that benefits everyone, not in a way where you've got such a disparity between the haves and the have nots, where you've got people dying of obesity on one side of the world and people dying of starvation on the other side of the world, sometimes in the same city, just different zip codes. You know, how do we even the playing field in a way that everyone has an opportunity to thrive and nobody falls between the cracks of society? There's no reason that homelessness should be a thing. There's no reason that food scarcity should be a thing. There's enough resources in the world to provide shelter and food for everyone. And so the issue is we're mismanaging the resources at a global level. And this kind of sounds like some New World Order type shit. And I think even that was like a psychological operation to keep people boxed in and not think about, okay, maybe we should start thinking globally and in a way that we can reorganize ourselves across borders, across political boundaries. Like if all the top scientists in the world were working towards the cure of one thing, as opposed to some of them are working for Pfizer, some of them are working for Merck, some of them are working for the Russian government, some for the United States government, and that keeps them in competition instead of in collaboration with one another. Like imagine a world of collaboration. I want to get to that Star Trek world where they're not worrying about, you know, brand names and things like that, and we can spend our time doing more meaningful things like exploring the cosmos because we've taken care of everyone here at home already. Like they're already talking about trying to explore and colonize Mars, and it's how we haven't even solved the problems on Earth. All we're going to do is
Right.
just export those same problems to a different planet, and it's going to be the exact same thing. There's a show that I watch on Amazon called The Expanse. It's a sci-fi show. Not sure if either of you are familiar with it, but it talks about like a post interstellar future where, you know, they have the capacity to colonize different planets, and you've got a faction of people that work primarily in the asteroid belt, and it just paints this picture of more of the same power control structures that are in place, more people, some people having access to food and water and oxygen, other people dying of starvation and oxygen in some places. And I'm just wondering, can we as a people ever break that pattern that we've been locked in for, I don't know, since the history of man? You know, we've always been at war with each other, and there's always been bread and circus to distract the masses from the real atrocities that are happening in the world, and everybody's in their complacent little bubbles. Can we pop the bubbles, and can we do something different with the resources that we now have at our disposal? Can we organize around a major global change so that everyone, like I said, has that opportunity to thrive?
I think we're closer to that than ever, but also farther away from that than ever, which is really
Mm.
kind of depressing, but also exciting. Um, like what I mean by that is I think that the sooner that the masses realize that everyone else that's also the masses is not the enemy. The real enemy is the people that are holding us down, as in government and major corporations and all these people that are keeping all the resources for themselves while the rest of us just fight amongst each other. I mean, that that's when we'll get closer to there. Like we can all collaborate and work together instead of fighting our neighbors and our friends and our family because they believe this or they think that, or like your neighbor and your coworker are not your enemy because of their opinions. Like let's be honest.
Mm-hmm. Are we getting to MK Ultra here for you, Jay?
No, I think, you know, a big,
Idealistic.
huh?
Too idealistic, too naive,
Might be a little bit
delusional.
too idealistic. You know, I think realistically we're going to have a shift in human nature because that's kind
Yeah.
of like we can say we're further or closer, but you know, until we get to the point where you know we don't have that innate selfishness, because I think you know humans are innately selfish, and selfishness isn't inherently a bad thing, but you know we tend to try to look out for each other. We tend to stick with people who look and act like us. Like yeah, like I want to. I also think that there shouldn't be uh poverty poverty or starvation, but I also want I also want $2 billion. Like you know that's just being honest. Do I need $2 billion? No, but you know if you gave the average person $1 billion, they probably wouldn't say no either. So there are a lot of things that are just in our nature that we just have to get out. And I don't know how you get there. I don't know how long it takes to get there. But I'm not necessarily optimistic that we'll see it in our lifetime. Um, honestly, if I'm being honest, I think it'll probably be more like Watchmen. I don't know if either of you have read the Watchmen comics, but basically you need some sort of existential crisis to band everybody together. Basically, something bigger than all of us, like a big ass alien.
Like some Independence Day type shit.
Yes, yeah. Like
Okay.
it's like, okay, you can call me the N-word all you want. This motherfucker here. like,
Right.
like what you want to do? You know,
Rednecks and
he's
Black
here. He's
Panthers
here for
side
all of
by
us. It
side.
don't matter. Like, but you know, is it going to take something like that for us to come together? I don't know. It just seems like it. Like it just seems like there has to be some sort of common enemy, or you know, yeah, some sort of common enemy for us to really band together.
Yep. The world is neurodivergent and we need that pressure, that looming threat for us to actually get over the hump.
Yeah.
That that's the takeaway for me. You're right though. It's humans. Humans are the problem.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Well, I think we could.
one problem that we can fix right now is food for us because I'm hungry.
Yeah, I am hungry too. I
Yeah,
could
we've
talk
been
about this
ranting.
all day. I mean, we literally have been talking for
Yes.
nearly 2 hours
Yeah,
now.
sorry guys, I get
Oh,
long-winded.
Oh
word.
no, no, we love this. Like you said, you just energized us, which is pretty wild for introverts. This was a wild introvert conversation that we loved. Um, but this was so awesome. Maybe eventually we'll have a part two. Who knows?
For
But
sure.
Drew, really quickly before we wrap it up and tell the folks where to find us, I've never said that word in my life. I'm becoming you, Jay. Before we tell our friends where to find us and all that, why don't you plug really quickly and let us know where people can find you?
Oh boy, they're gonna have to find me offline right now. I'm hiding. I'm flying
I
below the
love that.
radar. But if you want to look at some of my archive stuff, Drew.Bionic on Threads on Instagram. You can get a snapshot of some point in time. I've been pretty inactive at this point, but at some point I'm going to get back active again, just not feeling it right now. I am working on a little creative project on the side though, some music. And so I'll probably start sharing that online once I get a little bit closer to being done with it.
Awesome. That's exciting. So yeah, like I said, I love talking to Drew on Threads. That's how we connected. So we definitely get ourselves in some hot water together.
For sure.
And we've had each other's backs quite a couple times. So I appreciate you, and I'm glad you're able to come on. If you guys love this episode, if you guys were triggered by this episode, which some of you might be, I hear you. Be sure to share it with a friend, tell a friend, like it, rate it, review it. Do not unsubscribe. Just kidding. Uh, we love all of you. We love everybody that we have on, and this is a space for all introverts, and so we're happy to have conversations like this that really get us thinking. What
Yeah,
about you?
but I think we laugh, but I think that's actually very good stuff. I think this is probably one of the most
Triggering conversations.
okay, triggering is a word, but I think I was going to say serious
Yeah.
episodes that we've had. And yeah, some people might feel a certain type of way, but you know, I think we'd be hypocrites if we didn't allow the space for folks to say how they felt. So yeah, if you felt kind of way, if you like the show, if you didn't like the episode, let us know. We may bring you on to have a talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we
There we
are.
go.
We'd rather have the discussion than just dismiss it and it go nowhere or fester into something larger. So
Absolutely.
definitely, let us know how you felt.
It's not the host, it's me. I'm the problem. So if there's any
It's
hate
me.
mails,
Taylor
if there's
Swift, all
any
right.
hate mails,
Can we make
send it
that
my
the
way.
title? Can we
It's
make that the
me. I'm the
title?
problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I
I
love
mean
it. All
that's better.
right.
That's better than what I had, which was Don't Cancel Us. So I like that one better.
Oh, which one should we do?
You will be brave if you actually put this online. I've got to be honest.
We might have to chop it up a little bit. Maybe we'll do like an uncensored version somewhere. Maybe not.
I won't be offended. Whatever you guys have to do, to support the growth of the show, I fully support that.
We appreciate that. Maybe we'll put like part of the censored version on our Patreon or something. Then again, maybe we'll just put it out there. Who knows?
Whatever you guys do, whatever you decide, I'm good discussion.
Absolutely. We loved having you. So we should probably wrap this up because I keep saying, all right. All right. You know what? I'm gonna stop the record. Actually, you have the record button. So
All right. Like Steph said, if you like this episode, if you love it, if you're triggered, if you feel some sort of way, hit the rating, leave us a message. We will catch you next time. On behalf of Drew and Steph, I am Jay. Stay blessed, stay warm, and above all else, stay introverted.
Love it.